I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So with that, I will call the meeting of the Osceola Board of Education for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 to order with roll call. Brooke Oy. Here. Janet Carlson. Here. Corey Schmidt.
Here.
Kaisa Martin. Here. And myself is here. Item D, persons who requested an audience with the board. A reminder that this meeting is a public meeting of the Osceola School Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is considered a public meeting, in the public. There is time for public participation. We will be recognized by the chair. When called to speak, please approach the podium, state your first and last name and your topic. All remarks should be addressed to the whole board, not any one specific person. Comment time will be allowed for up to 5 minutes. During the public comment portion, the board and administration listen, but they may choose not to respond to public comment. We ask that speakers and audience members conduct themselves in a professional manner, which includes no hand waving or gesturing, no vocal interference with the speaker during their time, no disruption or incitement, taunting, ridiculing, or other demonstrative behaviors directed at others, and the use of appropriate language, tone, and gestures while speaking. Failure to comply with the result may result in you being asked to leave the meeting. We have one person that requested an audience with the board, and that is Teresa IP on the topic of referendum transparency.
Good evening, board. I am really concerned about the partial truths that were told at the last meeting. This is at least the third time that I've asked to be presented with this referendum, with our entire operating budget hand in hand with the impact that the referendum, the proposed referendum, will have and the impact that it will have. I was very disappointed in the fight that I observed between one board member and two others to present logical and transparent finances to the public, with the only excuse being, we've always done it this way. I also want to throw this out here, a piece of information. Please tell Tim Byrne that I will call Ken, because when it comes down to this, we have a moral obligation to tell the truth, the whole truth, and protect the widows and people who are on a fixed income and those who are less fortunate or don't have the same knowledge base. And Joe will be very disappointed in what he's seeing. If you look at page 8 of the board packet regarding the building referendum, it shows exactly what I was concerned about. The debt structure that we were asking for shows that the 14-cent impact is actually, if you look at it at a straight line amortization, a 59-cent impact. This means it's not just $4.67 a month on a $400,000 property, it's actually $19.67 a month. This is essential. When you structure debt that a bulk load of it falls at the end, you're paying interest on all of that at the bulk load end. You see this on year 2047 on page 3 and year 2046-47 on page 6. In my opinion, this is very, very misleading to the public. The payments are super low at the beginning and then they increase exponentially. Whether a voter agrees or disagrees to invest in this new school or this investment in our school, it's absolutely essential for your voters to understand how this is going to impact their true bills in the long run. Taxpayer bills will absolutely increase exponentially after a handful of years. Please understand how your vendor makes money. What is it? How do they benefit in structuring the bond this way? Why don't they let you, why are they structuring it that way? Why is that the way they've always done it? Also, is your vendor going to even shop around for bonds? Do you know if you're going to get a AAA rated bond? Were they able to do that before? And are these gonna be public bonds, or are they gonna shop them in the private market? And why, when you're presenting this debt, why aren't you using our current bond rating from the last referendum so that we can truly estimate the costs that the taxpayers will be paying? I really, really want you to lean in on this discussion. I want you to understand the long-term impact to the consumers and the taxpayers in our community. And if you're going to publish and circulate any information to the public, it really needs to have a long-term impact. And I strongly, strongly suggest that you utilize a straight line amortization to process this debt. Because putting it beyond, like I said in the past, wouldn't even pass the rigors of traditional consumer mortgage lending. You will be misleading the public, in my opinion. Please do your research. If you don't understand the impact of these 3 columns on this table, reach out to somebody who knows what this is. It's over $1 million in extra interest for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we're to item 2, which is the consent agenda. Board, what is your wishes?
Motion to approve it.
There's a motion by Dan,
I'll second.
second by Corey. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item 3, aligning and developing our facilities to best meet educational safety and security goals. Item A is facility planning.
Hi, we have Debbie here with us today, just kind of follow up on a conversation that we had at the last board meeting. So if you could share that handout, please. Excellent. So at the end of hello again. At the end of the last board meeting, I had 2 takeaways that I was hopeful to follow back, or that I heard you ask about. And so I'll start with the first one. The first one, we were talking about that prepayment option, and I just wanted to clarify, so this ties to, in the financing plan, how we have that stabilization fund, and Jan, you had clearly said we hope to prepay that, and I didn't feel I explained it well in saying, well, we can, we're just gonna prepay earlier maturities. So I wanted to put this together just to highlight what I was trying to explain, maybe in a better, different way. And so this shows where a typical prepayment, where you have dollars you want to pay early and you want to generate the most interest savings on the particular issue, so the one you have outstanding. So this looks familiar, you've seen this, and in this case, if the district didn't go to referendum, and we're looking, or it didn't pass, and we're looking at this issue specifically, the way to generate the most interest savings by prepaying on this specific issue would be to target the final 2 maturities. And the estimate, if we were to do that, is $65,000 at this point in time. Again, doing this June 1st at the conclusion of the referendum, if you do go and did want to wait. So on the next slide, I had the team put together the sample prepayment reflecting what I was trying to communicate last time and just didn't have this in order to communicate it. What we're proposing is, if the district goes to referendum and it passes, we can take those dollars that have been levied, if the district chooses to levy them, and instead of targeting the final 2 maturities, we could target the maturities in 26, 27. And if we look at this issue in itself, it would generate less interest savings. So see if in the yellow box it shows 14,000. But what it would do is it would build a gap in the financing so that you could tuck in the new plan. So if we look at the debt as a whole, the new financing, which is estimated to be borrowed at a higher interest rate than this one. So we can still prepay. The proposal would be prepay earlier maturities, save less on the existing so that we can save more on the new. So I thought this might demonstrate it a little better. The reason why I wouldn't say let's do this either way, and why if the district goes to referendum, if you'd be willing to wait until after, is if it doesn't pass, this isn't the best solution overall. So just waiting to know could provide savings if the referendum passes, but then also put you in a position if it doesn't, or you don't go to save the most with the other plan. So does this help show that better? I thought in words I wasn't able in words last time without having this here explain that, and so, is this helpful? Okay. So again, you don't have to decide on it today. The first step will be setting the levy in October, and then the next step would be the board deciding if they're going to go to referendum, those pieces fit together and we can put them in there. So, okay. So then the second note that I took away was asking for the level debt service. And so just starting you out, this was the wraparound, this is where we left off. So different communities have different focuses. For some districts, they like the lower impact and want to communicate that, but there are other structures such as the level debt service. So just in the boxes are kind of the notable differences, so it's easy to point out. So impact of 14 cents. This one structures it so that as you're paying off the old, the new is less, and then you ramp up the new when the old is paid off. Lower impact as an impact over, so the increase over what is currently being paid. Higher interest costs relative to the level debt service scenario. So the next slide shows you this is exactly what we saw last time, so estimated impact. And this shows we turn off the old, we turn on the new. Estimated impact over the estimated 24-25 is 14 cents. And the two combined would exist for the 4 years of overlap, and then the new one would take over as the new one fell off. So on the next slide, we talked, where we left off last time was that in a level debt service, the impact would be estimated higher because we'd be layering the debt on top. So this bar chart represents that, and I have the numbers for you on the next slide. So based on the level aggregate, I'm calling it, so there's a difference between these two, and there's a little nuance. So the first one, level aggregate we call it, does level debt payments. So this is still putting a higher payment in the very first year of the first maturity, assuming we prepay and build that gap for it. But after that, we have level debt service throughout the first. We have level debt service-ish throughout the second. But what it leaves is a larger payment at the end. And the goal in this, now this would be right for some districts, not for others, is that the total levy, as we combine the two together, there'd be the overlap years, but once the overlap years were done, it would levy out at about $2,080,000. So if we do a level and a level aggregate, that estimated impact comes to 57 cents. And it would be less in the initial years, but we want to communicate the highest year, that third year, so that it was clearest that the impact could get up to that. So then, knowing that this is level aggregate, but there's a level, if you go to the next slide, I asked the team to come back and say, let's look at a level, meaning we're looking at each issue in isolation. We want level debt service throughout. And that's what this scenario represents. And so in this case, the difference between the last one and this one is that the very last maturity is not $2 million anymore. It drops to $826,000 because we just said in the second issue, just leave it level throughout. And in that case, because we are pushing principal up earlier, it reduces the interest cost, the impact was higher. So all of these, you'll see this in the next summary page. The lower the estimated impact, the higher estimated interest cost, and so then vice versa. So we have the wraparound that we started with. So the similarities between the three plans are 21 years, same planning rates. So if we use the wraparound, it's a lower estimated impact. We're spreading it out more evenly over the number of years. The taxpayers over 21 years is that more of that lens. The level aggregate says we're okay with the overlap for 4 years, the estimated impact's going to be higher for those years, and then we're going to level out for the rest of the borrow. Cumulative, right, we're looking at it as a whole, even though we're doing it in 2 parts. And the second one looks at level by issue. So still the 21-year estimated planning rates, the lowest interest cost of them, because we're paying more earlier, results in higher impact. So I had thought that maybe if presented with these, that the board would lean toward either the level by issue or the wraparound. The level aggregate just being 2 cents different for the higher interest, I thought you might lean toward level by issue. But each scenario can fit in different districts, so I just wanted to make sure. So instead of coming back with 2, I came back with 3. So you have time to change the approach for the survey. So the survey will put in an estimated impact. And so the draft you saw has a 14 cents, can easily be flipped out with a 59 cent or 57 cent. And that strategy then becomes our communication piece and the baseline for the future scenarios that we run. Because remember, these are estimates. We're going to continue to update as if we get closer, interest rates can tighten up, and we get better variables such as October 1st, we get property values, right? So there are variables that come into play. The structure though helps us know how you'd like us to look at it going forward. Did I explain those scenarios okay?
This is nice to see this page.
Yeah.
Questions for Debbie? Jan, anything to add?
I'm glad that you changed the format of the debt, but what I was kind of looking for, that the principal payment was the same from beginning to end. That we don't have like these big payments at the bottom. Because I mean, when you look at these different ones from the level debt, there's, I believe, $1 million in interest saved. If you look at the wraparound, you know, we have these big debt payments, principal payments, and I'm thinking even longer term. Yes, we have just a couple years left on our current debt. Wrap around this if it goes through, but with the hopes and everything else that the district will grow in the future, and we had to go to referendum again. I don't necessarily want to sit out there with these large payments and then try to merge them together, and then we create this high impact for taxpayers. So I'm not just looking today, October, I'm looking to the future and how this will impact people. So I was hoping, I'm glad you almost hit it, but that the debt principal payments were the same all the way through. And what I didn't do today, and I forgot, was to look what our debt payment was, or the amount that we levied last year for debt, compared to the estimate that we're projecting in October, this $2,164,000. Are we kind of trying to stay around that 2 million or what? Because I think when you bring on this debt at first, it might be a little bit higher, but then it would be leveled off and it would be easier in the future. Because I believe that you'll have another debt issue before 2047.
So if I hear what you're saying, you're hoping for a drop maybe in 5 or 10 years, so that if the district does need to come back, there's a drop there. Is that what you're asking?
So we'll have a drop when that
Yeah.
current debt falls off.
If we do like the level aggregate or the level debt, there'll
Right.
be a drop of about $1 million,
We'll have that drop.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that, okay, if you spread this 17.2, because you're talking about maybe doing that one early, that it would just be level. So say the payments were $1 million, but just for the principal.
Mhm.
And it was $1 million the whole life of the loan. What would that really look like, and what would the savings be? So we don't have some, even thinking farther.
We can run that, so that would pay it off in 17 years instead of 20.
Maybe.
So you're okay with the shorter
Yeah,
amortization? Okay. Okay.
I'm just curious what it would look like.
Okay.
Because it's kind of the board that sets the payment schedule, right? Or is it the bond, the one that's sold?
Yeah, good question. So what happens is if the district goes to referendum and it passes, we come back to you with a structure or two, and it has to fit, pending no crazy market change, within the parameters that we communicate. But that's when the board says, yep, this is the plan we wanna lock in on, then take that to market. Then it goes to public market, local banks can also have the opportunity to bid, it goes to market, and then bidders can bid on that. But the board, then that's why I say, like, we don't have to get stuck on 17.2 million and 10 million at this point either. Let's fast forward, and let's say the market the market shifts in terms of the investment rate and such, and maybe it makes more sense to do 15 million and 12.2, right, depending. So that can shift, but it's the parameter of that impact that we've communicated. So yeah, and that comes back to the board for approval before it goes. Yeah.
And I thought you were kind of stuck on this 10, because like when the bonds were sold, or what the financing for the current debt, you didn't go to the bond market, you did them differently, didn't you?
That one was a private placement because of the good interest rates and the 10-year amortization.
And it was under that, it was that $10 million,
Yeah.
right? It was
Yeah.
kind of,
So this 10 million, it's not, the reason the second phase is 10 million is not because of the first one. The reason this second phase is 10 million is because of the federal, again, this is a nuance, but bank qualified status. So in a typical market, if it's 10 million or less, you get a better interest rate, everything else staying the same. So that's why we parsed that out in 10 million. And the reason why we didn't do 10 million, 10 million, 7.2 million is that stretches it out over 3 years, which exceeds the life of the project construction. So we're just trying to capitalize, we are trying to capitalize on what we can within that time frame.
I thought the 10 million was so you could do what you did with.
Yeah, no, it's coincident, no, this is still over the 20 years, and it is still a market issue as we have it laid out. And we intend to do it that way. And so the reason why, there's a lot of ways municipal debt is different than home, like mortgages and such, but one way, in this way that we could explain it similar, is if you think of like your home mortgage in the initial years. If you look at the detail of your payment, you pay less on principal, more on interest, and the further you go, you pay more and more and more on principal, less and less on interest, but the payment you pay each month is a similar amount, and that's how this level debt service was thought. So that's why, I know exactly what you're saying, and you can sure on that, but that's why you see, if you look at the $10 million issue, for example, and you add the 300, can you go back, sorry, I can't keep pointing at my screen. I'm on the level debt, the one right before this, please. Two more, one more after that, please. Sorry, down. There we go, thank you. So if you look at the 10 million, and the first year, the 45,786, skip past that year to the 315,514. So 315,000 in principal, 514 in interest. So that totals approximately 800.
Yes.
So then the next year, when we do more in principal, it does less in interest. So the levelness is that level payment throughout the year.
So that's what you were aiming for.
Correct, that would be similar to how most issues would be repaid on a level debt service system. And that, in that way, it is similar to home mortgage. You have the same payment every month. In this case, it's twice a year because it's municipal debt. But it's, as you go further, more of those principal and less interest. And that's here. But we certainly can run straight principal down. It'll shorten the amortization. It'll again increase the impact. But it will, that a 17-year amortization, everything else staying similar, on that 17 million would reduce interest. And we wouldn't, that wouldn't really be level debt service anymore, it'd be level principal, but.
And then I think of the mill rate, right?
That, yeah,
Which, I mean, right now, it's projected that it's gonna go down with the information you guys had when this was determined. The mill rate is gonna go down a little bit, which is great. And in the future, I'm worried about maybe having to go to an operation referendum if we're gonna have to. When is that gonna happen? Cause that will impact the levy. And then this, and it's like, you know, putting all those pieces together to make this decision.
Yeah.
So,
We talked about that, you know, just that overall planning. So in that case, the level debt could be an advantageous approach. It might not be the right years, but it does build a drop in a few years in, and that
Right.
could be the opportunity to layer in something else, and the total levy that's going toward additional things, whether it's debt or operational referendum, would stay consistent at or around that 3 million mark.
so I was like thinking about trying to plan, project mill rates and everything else. And the impact on the taxpayer with these different scenarios, so. Sorry. Then I have one other one.
So far. You have one other question?
No.
Oh, I get that first.
Oh, I thought you did too.
I think I'm good.
Okay, so would you like to see a level principal scenario? So it'll be higher impact, it won't be it'll be a shortened amortization, which is fine.
It'll be interesting to see what it'll do to our overall total debt payment from year to year. And will it be too high for the taxpayers to absorb in 1 year when it starts to hit, or do we have to bring it in at different rates?
So what I'm hearing, just to clarify, is this, if we wanna do apples to apples, we would leave it at 17.2 and 10 million, just so we have, as we're comparing side by side. But we'll do 17.2, and we'll either do $1 million for 17 years, or can we take 17.2 and divide it by 20, and just you want the same principal amount overall 20, take the 10 million, divide by 20, that's easy math, and do that over 20 years, stack them up, and add that to the summary.
Right.
Got it.
I just threw that other number out there.
That's okay. Actually, I was right with you with the million, and then I thought, wait a second, it still can be 20 years. We just have to do different math. So my question then is, are there any scenarios you want me to remove from the summary page? So if you go to the last page again, please. Are there any, when I come back, that you want me to remove from here? So
I prefer to keep them at this point.
leave all three. Okay.
And I think the level, that aggregate one doesn't really make the most sense, because it's.
If we were to get rid of one, that's what I was thinking.
I agree with you, but if we're just comparing it all, it'd be nice to have it on the sheet. That's
Okay.
what I was thinking, just to say, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking, what was the other one again?
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you, appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Any other questions?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Deb.
is there anything else that you would want Debbie to bring back, because at that, in that meeting, more than likely there'll be like, what's the direction, because the survey has to have a very clear decision. No?
Building and Grounds Department report.
All right.
Welcome.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. So I just have a few items to go over. Both will all past, current, and future projects that we're kind of working on right now. Two of them are at the elementary school. One of them is we did some repatching and line painting. There were 31 spots that needed to be patched in the parking lot and then around the back by where the dumpsters are. So we got all of those taken care of, and we got that done before the painting so that we're able to paint over the patches. And then we also worked on the secure entrance. So we were able to get push bars and safety glass on the inner set of doors in the vestibule. So when you walk in, the wood doors now have push bars so they can be locked. Before they were just doors with no locking mechanism. And then we were also able to get sliding glass in to look into the office. So then when parents come in, they can buzz in outside, get into the vestibule, and then if they have anything to drop off, they can do that through the sliding glass. Then we have dredging of ponds. This is it was supposed to start, but due to the weather, it's now an upcoming project. We are looking at, well, there's an excavator sitting out there by the ponds. That's one of the ponds that we're going to be working on. It's just really full of debris from all the trees that are growing. All of those trees weren't planted there. They just grew up over the years. So all of the leaves from them have fallen into the ponds. Just isn't good for drainage. And then there is a culvert that kind of buckled up. Turns out that culvert is right by the three-phase power and the water line. So it's kind of an intricate process to get that put back in. But that culvert then drains to another pond, which is also full. So given all the water that we've had this year, the problem that we're trying to fix is also the problem that's hindering us from fixing it, which is it's all too soft around there right now. So we're gonna wait until hopefully next week everything dries out and we're able to get in there and dredge all of that out. We will take all of the dirt, put it up by the intermediate, and then we can use that dirt on the different campuses. Recently, we also took down some trees by the ag classrooms of the high school. These trees were dying, and they weren't in a good spot. They were very close to the building, so they were dropping leaves onto the roof. And then they had very few leaves left because they were dying. When you put trees in a confined space like that, it drastically reduces the lifespan of the trees. So we took those out before they became an issue, before they started to wreck the concrete, heave that up, or even start to drop branches or anything like that. And then the last item is the cooler and freezer project on the back side of the high school. We got the slab put in with bollards in each corner, and that is going to be set 6 feet away from the building so that the doors don't hit when going in and out. Because it's 6 feet away, we put electrical heating under the slab so that no ice buildup occurs there, and we're going to put an awning over top just to try and keep the snow out as best we can. But the slab is in right now. All of the work done inside the building for electrical is all done as well. We have a breaker panel outside, so all the work on the inside of the building should be done. All we have to do is on the outside, so it shouldn't hinder anything during the school year. And then, as always, I didn't put it on there, but getting ready for students was a big project, but really happy with how my staff handled that. So they did a very good job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we will move on to shift club program report.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome.
I just have a couple of quick slides for you. So our July-August program, we had over 128 students. We served over 90 families in the district. And while doing that, because of the reconfiguration, we moved all of our classrooms while still providing care for all of those students. which was a huge undertaking. So I really want to thank my staff, custodians, and Julie for being patient with us getting that out so she could reconfigure her building too. Total number of staff members it took to make that program run over the summer was over 17 adults and 9 students, because the students are there all day, so it takes a lot of people to do that. Moving forward, my goal is to communicate more clearly with parents. I think there was some confusion maybe in the past, so I just want to make sure that I'm building relationships with them and making sure they have all the pertinent information they need to get their kids registered for Kids Club. We'll continue to organize the classrooms and materials. There's a lot of materials, so for students that'll help keep them engaged, less behavior issues hopefully. For staff, easier to locate all those things. We have a central storage area in my office. We're reorganizing everything, labeling. And for the parents, we have a new Kids Club drop-off at the east entrance, which they're all getting used to. So that's nice because we have that full wing down there. And then moving forward, some CPR training, because I have a couple of staff members that will be expiring on that. And they're limited on their technology, I've learned, so I'm hoping to schedule a couple of those for them. And right now, we currently have 128 students for the 24-25 school year. Our first day, we had 90 students that we served, and today we had 88. And that's all I got for you.
Thank you.
Are those, Lori, you know that's pretty typical numbers?
Yes, I think Penny and Angela, I asked them, they said it was like between 90 and 100.
Okay.
Last year too. Varies.
And the big change is that it's all housed at the elementary school. Kids are riding buses down.
Yeah, and Steve did a wonderful job with that. I communicated with him. I shared the spreadsheet with him so he knew exactly the numbers we would have so he could do busing, and it's going well.
Good collaboration and awesome.
Lori, what's the maximum number of kids you can have with the current staff?
Right, so for the younger groups, the pre-K and K, it's 13 children per 1 adult. And then the older group, it's 18 children per 1 adult. So, good question, I don't have those exact numbers for you, but I have it all mapped out that we are not over. I'm utilizing a couple of aides, just because until fall sports are done, a lot of my high school helpers cannot be there. I do have a couple now. And then there's aides that are only 7.5 hours, so I can utilize them for an hour at a time, and they're alternating days, so I make sure our quotas are correct.
I was just wondering how you were staff-wise with that many students potentially, that you would have
Yeah,
staff that you
and
need
so
to.
there's 128 students registered. They're not always all there on the same day.
Right.
Some are just mornings, some are, both, some are just afternoons, some are Monday, Tuesday. They're not all there all the time.
Correct.
That's just a total that we have registered.
That's awesome.
Thank you for all your work. Thank you. Alright. Any other questions for Lori? Alright, item 5 is engage in continuous improvement of student support systems and programs. Item A is review and approve clubs and activity restructure.
All right. Yep, so, just as a reminder from last time, we talked about all the clubs that we have within the whole district and activities. We were asked to just kind of do a little review, talk about compensation, and then come up with a process to figure out, what their expectations are, how do we add a new club, how do we grow, and then what happens when someone leaves the district and was an advisor. So, working through all those processes. So just as a refresher, we have a couple different levels. One is just a trial, so it's just someone who has an idea about a club, wants to try it out. They're in that trial stage, not paid, just a volunteer position. The next one is a level 1. That's a little bit more established. We have at least 10 students in there, and all activity happens during the contracted school day. Level 2, similar situation. But they also host events outside of school or go to competitions outside of school, so outside of their contracted time. We have a student-led clubs, so that's a little bit different. And then lastly, we have a lot of coordinator positions, so that would be like student council or yearbooks, so just different coordinating positions. So if you go down a little bit more, April, there's a little chart there. Those are the numbers that we are proposing right now, that people are paid for those different levels of advisors. You'll notice I talked about last time, there's about a $10,000 increase from last year to this year. So that's a big number, but that's because of one, we already approved an increase from 23-24 to 24-25 for those payments. And then we are asking to add a couple of positions of people who have been volunteering as club advisors for years and years. And then like the middle school BFS program that happens before contracted time, and what's the last one I'm forgetting? Chief and Outpost. So the school store that serves our whole district is an unpaid position right now. So those are a couple of big positions that have been left open right now, unpaid. So that's what we're asking for. Do you have any questions that I can answer for you? We presented this to all the high school staff. Since it impacts them the most, they all fill out their little information sheet that will go on the website soon, and you can learn all about the details of each club. Anything else?
Questions for me?
Was there any feedback from the staff about this new tier and how it might affect some of them?
No, I think they're excited. I think that they understand the plan. I think that none of them are gonna go down, so even if they are a little bit above that amount in that level, they're not gonna go down. But they understand that when someone leaves, we are gonna reevaluate where that club goes and how much that position is making. So I think many of them who've gone unpaid for different things that they've been doing for a long time, we're really excited to be acknowledged for the work that they've been doing, so.
I just want to say I like it though too, because anyone that's got an idea of maybe starting something, they at least understand now what the path looks like, where it might have been a little foggy and be like, will I ever get paid if I were to do this? Because it's one thing to volunteer time, which some of these people have done for years, but to show our appreciation is very important.
And to have an opportunity for our
Right.
kids.
And that's the thing, like, I know it's an increase of $10,000, but if we're ever gonna spend extra money on something, it should be on stuff like this, because not every kid gets that positive vibe or whatever, they need clubs like this to get through the day. These are the kind of things that get some kids to want to show up to school. So I think if this is what it takes to help maybe provide that for some staff too, to want to start some new stuff, I love it.
I think that was a part that we talked about, like the idea of establishing something new. It was kind of a no-go in the past, and we also wanted to say, like, you also can't just say I'm gonna do this and then we need to see over time, you have to have some membership. So there's some pretty specific details that are pretty important to us.
It was long overdue to get cleaned up. I know it was a lot of work this summer, and thank you guys for doing that,
Thanks
but,
for your time on that.
I think it's a beautiful layout. I think it's very easy to understand as a student, as a taxpayer, as everything, so, yeah. With that, anybody wanna make a motion? Okay.
Approve the clubs and activities we started.
Not allowed a second.
Motion by Tyson, and a second by Cory. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item B is review and approve the mentor pay.
So at our meeting last time, I just showed you the same sheet that you're seeing this time and talked a little bit about mentoring and what's required and where we've been, and just requesting an increase for our mentors and certified staff, and also pay for establishing a program for mentors for our para educators.
I think mentoring is vitally important to growing our staff, and I always think as a mentor, you learn things from your mentees as well. So with that, I will make a motion. The chair will make a motion to approve mentor pay. Motion by Brooke Kozer, second by Brooke Oy. Any further discussion?
I just wanna say the mentoring for the special ed para stuff is brilliant. Every school should be doing it.
I'm just wondering if other positions in the district might regardless of the position that they have.
I think we do a really good job of that. I think it's these positions in particular, the people who don't sit next to somebody else that they can ask the questions to.
That they're
That's what we
one-on-one with
see.
a student or a group of students or whatever.
Alright, there's a motion and a second, any further discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, you say nay. That is approved. Next meeting is the annual meeting and budget hearing is scheduled for Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the high school large group instruction room. The next regular committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the district office conference room. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the district office conference room. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985-1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, individual contracts. There's a motion by Kaisa. Second by Jan. Roll call, Brooke Oy.
Yep.
Jan Carlson.
Yes.
Cory Schmidt.
Yes.
Kaisa Martin. And myself is a yes. We will take 5 in the executive session. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.